welcome to... Yeah, no, I messed it up. Let's just go into it.
Take
Hey,
two.
welcome to Telling the Tale. I'm your host, Mitchell Farley Wolfe. I'm here with Dustin V.
Hello.
Jackson.
That's me.
Dustin, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you, Mitchell. We're recording this on my birthday. What a special podcast this is.
It's a very special episode of the podcast.
How did you know this is what I wanted?
Because we normally do these on Sundays now, but you said we're doing it on Saturday, which I thought weird because it's your birthday, but all right.
Oh, yeah. This whole weekend's, super busy, and this is the one time this is gonna happen.
Okay. So, yeah, we're a little less structured today. We don't have our segments. We don't have our I don't have notes, even.
Oh, wow.
This episode doesn't have a number behind it. It has,
What?
maybe it does. I don't know. I actually haven't decided, but I think it won't.
We'll see where things go.
Yeah. Dustin, we both played Return to Monkey Island.
We sure did. It was a fun time.
Yeah, the 6th game in the Monkey Island franchise by Terrible Toybox, published by Devolver Digital with licensing from Lucasfilms Games.
Thank you, Lucasfilm Games.
Thank you very much, Lucasfilm Games. So here's where I'm coming from with this, Dustin.
Okay.
I know we've got a lot of people who want to listen to our thoughts on it, but don't want to be spoiled by the episode in terms of what happens in the game, especially things like the ending and things like that. So I was thinking for the first half, maybe less than half, I don't know, first section of the episode, we can talk about the game from a non-spoiler perspective. A high level understanding of the game.
We can try. I feel like I have to be on my best behavior. I feel like our normal episodes, we kind of throw caution to the wind.
Yeah.
Sometimes we throw spoilers out just right from the get-go. So
We do.
I'm going to try to resist.
Yeah, and then as soon as we can't anymore, then that'll be our cue that we need to go into the next section.
Right. I'm going to try my best to give the audience what they want.
So, altogether, all things said, Dustin, did you like Return to Monkey Island?
I did like it. And you know what? I'm glad that we waited a little bit longer to record this episode so I could kind of gather my thoughts on it. Because I feel like now that I finished it about a week ago, I think I can say that I like it more now than I did.
Okay, so what was your feeling coming right out of it?
Coming right out of it, I was like, yeah, I liked it. Yeah, I it's a little hard to go into without talking about the ending, so I won't say what happens in the ending, but I will say, at first, I feel like my opinion was soured a little bit by it.
Okay.
But, so, when we finished the game, or when I finished the game, the ending kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and because of that, I was like, it was good. I don't know where I'd really rank it, but I think now, after giving it some time and thought, I think I can say this might be my second favorite Monkey Island game.
Second to Tails?
Yeah, second to Tails.
Okay. I was
At
actually
first-
also in the
go-
mood of thinking it's my second favorite, maybe third.
Cool. Yeah, it was originally my third. I originally had it after 2, but I think the more I thought about it, the more the things in this kind of stuck with me more than 2 did. Like,
Yeah.
2 is a classic, so it was... At first I was like, well, there's no way it could be better than 2, and in ways it's not. I think there's a few ways where it's not as good as 2, but at the end of the day, I think, the themes this game covers, and just, how memorable the scenes are, I do think I'd put it over 2.
I still think 2 is my favorite, and then I would put Return after that.
Cool.
Cool.
That's cool. I like that.
I
I like that we both liked it a fair amount.
I liked it a fair amount. There's a lot of more than any other Monkey Island game, except potentially Escape, because we both don't know about that. But more than any other Monkey Island game, this game feels like it retreads the most.
Yeah.
It's not a retelling of the first game, but there's a lot of stuff in the first game that you'll see again. Especially locations, characters.
Some characters.
Yeah, it's sort of set up like a mirror of that first game. And you know what? I think that if it did what it was trying to do in a way that promoted more new experiences, more entirely new thoughts and ideas and places and characters, I might like it more than 2. I think it is a little bit down in the rankings for me, just because I'm not seeing as many new cool places to explore and memorable things as I have in the other Monkey Island games.
Right, I totally get that. I kind of feel the same, but at the same time, I feel like, I don't know what it is, but I feel like it kind of works better here than it could have. Like, you have a bunch of returning characters and locations, but it never really... To me, it doesn't feel like it's just rehashing stuff. It feels like exactly what it is. You're coming back here and seeing these characters after a long period of time.
Yeah, it's one thing to think about it as Monkey Island 6, or another to be just like Donkey Kong Country Returns of Monkey Island, which I think it is. And it's got its own things going on, just like Donkey Kong Country Returns does, but like Returns doesn't really set aside its own identity insofar as things beyond being a remix of the original game. Which is fine. I think it worked out, and I think that in terms of what people have been waiting for, it's very hard to imagine it being any other way than it was.
I think what makes it work here better than it does for Donkey Kong Country Returns, and I do like Donkey Kong Country Returns, but I do agree it kind of retreads a little too much to really stand out for me. But I think what makes Return to Monkey Island work better is, like I said, it's been a while since we've been here, so you are seeing these characters and locations, but things have changed. Things are not... You're kind of seeing how time has affected these characters, the locations you're going to. So I think it does it in an interesting way. Whereas, Donkey Kong Country Returns doesn't really have that much of a story, so it really doesn't go beyond, here's the jungle again, here's the cave levels again. And it does it in its own way, but I do think because Monkey Island is a series that focuses more on story, it works in this context better.
Yeah, and it uses that fact to tell the story and to hit the themes that it's going at. If it was entirely new stuff, I don't think it would have worked. There is probably a needle to thread, but I still was thinking the whole time, like, I'm getting a lot of what I've seen before. Both in the content of it and also in the mechanics of the game. When the terrible Toybox team was making Dolores a Thimbleweed Park mini adventure, they did a podcast talking about the development of that. It's just like a little side story of Thimbleweed Park, and it was apparently developed to test the new verb system that would eventually go into Return to Monkey Island. The verb system, by the way, for people who don't know, is the way that you interact in every old school adventure game from LucasArts. You click the verb, like open, then you click the door, and then you open the door. In Return to Monkey Island, it still technically exists, but instead of you picking the verbs, anything that you hover the cursor over just has the main interact verb that you can use with it, and then sometimes a secondary that you can like right click or use a different button on the controller to hit.
Right.
Which I think it worked pretty well. What do you think about the control scheme?
I think it worked great. Well, So my thing is, I played it on the Switch rather than on my PC, and I feel like the Switch kind of has like some issues here and there, like being able to click, like your cursor doesn't always go to the object you want it to go to right away. But it still worked fine. I never like got frustrated with it or anything.
Yeah,
but
I also played it on Switch.
I feel like if I had played it like the way it was, like a point-and-click adventure on the PC, it might have been a little more smooth. But I didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I think that this game really is made for computer first and foremost. And the Switch port is admirable. I think it does a great job, but like you're not getting around the fact that the mouse and keyboard is the way to maneuver yourself around this point-and-click adventure game.
Yeah, they do a good job of making it work on the Switch, but it's, if you want like the way you quote unquote should be playing it, then probably go PC.
Yeah, so the biggest controversy about this game, maybe outside of some spoilers we'll get to later, is the art style. Mm-hmm. We talked about it before. We started our very famous, successful Twitter campaign, #Don'tTellRon. How do we
Tag
feel?
your posts. I ended up really liking it by the end, and you know what I think it is? I forget if I brought it up before, but I think the reason it kind of ended up growing on me is it reminded me of All of the Other Reindeer, which was a Christmas special made by Matt Groening. And I really liked that, and this is basically that, but with pirates.
Yeah, I still think it's not the vibe I would have gone for, but after living in it for however hours it takes to get through the game, I have no idea how long it took me.
I don't either. I kind of wish so that's the crappy thing about playing on the Switch, is it has a weird way of telling you how long you've played a game.
Yeah. I want to guess that it took me the length of 3 Tales of Monkey Island episodes to get through.
Yeah, it didn't feel that long to me, but it didn't feel like super short either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I know that's very vague. That's a very vague way to say it.
If you're one of those folks that demands that games be $1 per hour, this will not satisfy you, I believe.
Yeah.
But also, it's a weird rule that you have. You should kind of calm down a little bit.
You know what? Something I'll say about Return to Monkey Island.
Mm-hmm.
So we played a different game after, but I found myself wanting to jump back in like right when I finished.
Yeah, me too.
And the main reason for that is they have a thing in the options menu called the Writer's Cut.
I love this thought. This is so good.
I love it. I didn't even know I didn't have it on. So what the Writer's Cut is, it's basically like a director's cut of the game where there's more dialogue that was cut from the normal way you play it to kind of help the pacing of the game out. But if you want that extra dialogue, you just slap the option on and there you go.
Yeah, I am very excited to one day, probably going to give it some time, but one day go back, turn the writer's block option on or off, whichever one lets them talk, because I did not have it with the extra stuff the first time.
Me neither.
I wanted to play as default as possible the first time around.
Yeah. So when you played, did you do it on hard mode or casual mode?
So I played this coming right off of a playthrough of Curse of Monkey Island, which I did right after we finished our episodes on Tales of Monkey Island. Mm-hmm. And in that game, there's Mega Monkey Mode, which is sort of, I guess, the inverse of this, where it's like the standard mode of playing through the game is, or the one that's written just normal, is actually a very truncated version of Mega Monkey Mode in Curse. Apparently, it was always just going to be Mega Monkey Mode, and that's the only thing that was going to be in the game. But then some executives at Lucas decided to say, like, no, this is too hard and complex and obtuse. You need to make an easy version. So within the scope of like 2 days of development, they just took a bunch of stuff out and then made the easy version. and then
I guess that's a good
called
way to
the
do
easy
it.
version the regular version in that game.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to do it. Do it normal first and then just take stuff out. I guess it's easier than bringing in a bunch of new stuff.
Yeah, but I've always thought it's weird that in that case, the normal, in quotes, version is the one that had stuff taken out, and then the one that they actually developed for the entirety of development is Mega Monkey Mode. Because it was the opposite in Monkey Island 2. Monkey Island 2 had Monkey Island 2 Light mode, or like Diet or whatever. And that was not promoted as the normal version of the game in the game, but then in Curse of Monkey Island it was. So I was already ready to go like, okay, whatever the hardest thing is probably the game they actually made, and then the other ones are accessibility options beyond that. And
so you did hard mode?
Yeah, oh yeah,
same.
yeah.
And I think it's because I picked easy mode for when I played through Curse, and I was like, well, I don't want to be that, because like everyone else, I had 2 friends, including you, who were also playing through Curse and streaming it, and both of you did Mega Monkey Mode, and I felt like a real chump playing just the standard easy mode.
Well, first of all, no one is a chump for taking the easy mode in any game. It's fine. It's what it's there for. It makes sense to do. And if you really need the accessibility benefits that easy modes often have, even though accessibility modes in a perfect world should all be a la carte, so you don't need to, make one aspect of the game easier just because you're having a hard time with the other aspect of the game. That's very difficult to do sometimes, so a lot of games just don't do that. But yeah, that said, after over 70 point-and-click adventure games from Telltale, right in my back pocket, I was definitely thinking I could handle it. I was definitely feeling that it would be okay.
Yeah, the only reason I picked easy mode for Curse was because I wanted to finish it and Escape before Return, and I didn't end up doing that anyway.
Yeah, maybe we do another one of these very cash episodes whenever luck finds us some time to play Escape.
I'd be down for that. That'd be great since neither one of us have played it before.
Right. So, yeah, I did do the hard version of Monkey Island, or Return to Monkey Island. I don't know what's different. I assume some things that took 3 steps in the game probably just take 1. Stuff like that.
Yeah. I had a friend who played through it on easy, and he said, we were kind of comparing, and he said, yeah, there's just some stuff you don't even have to do.
Is there a non-spoiler example you might have?
No.
Okay. Fair enough.
Awesome.
Yeah. Who's your... We don't have to do this as officially as we normally do, but any characters stand out? Anyone who might be a weekly guy?
I do have a weekly guy. So you said we don't have segments, but I wrote down all of our segments.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah.
I did all of them. And so my weekly guy for this...
Hey there, this is Mitchell. Dustin's about to say a spoiler, so this is officially your spoiler warning. It will be time for spoilers when I stop talking. I'm talking long enough just in case you might have your phone in your pocket and you don't have a way of accessing the controls on your phone in order to stop the podcast fast enough. So I'll just say a few more things. One, I am a huge fan of caramel flavor candies. In like a hard butterscotch, if your grandma has one of those, I'll be your grandma's best friend. I think that's probably enough time to alert you to get your phone. So we'll head back into the podcast, and when we do, there will be spoilers for both Return to Monkey Island and Thimbleweed Park. Just keep that in mind. Thank you.
I guess isn't really a spoiler since he's right there at the beginning. I picked Boy Brush.
Boy Brush. Okay, yeah.
I liked him a lot, and I think he really is.
I would say that's a spoiler, actually.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about that. Yeah, no, I would definitely actually would say that one is a spoiler, even though it is at the beginning.
Cool. Bleep that one out.
Well, no, you know what? I think we're there. I think we're talking I think we're talking spoilers. We're getting there.
Okay.
So I'll bleep it. I don't know how to bleep something. I've never done that, but I'll just sing really loud or something.
Perfect. But yeah, spoiler warning. 3, 2, 1, go. My weekly guy is Boybrush. Okay. I think he kind of represents the heart of this game. And I think that is why I rank Return to Monkey Island so high, is all of the heart in this game.
So let's talk about Boybrush, and let's talk about Monkey Island 2.
Okay.
Because that was Boybrush's first game, even though we didn't know that.
We didn't know it at the time.
Yeah, so Monkey Island 2, famous ending. Guybrush is fighting LeChuck, and then during the fight, the pirate world starts to deteriorate, and then it just gets sillier and sillier until it's two kids just playing around in a theme park.
Yeah. That old cliche.
Yeah, and Chucky, LeChuck, is Guybrush's older brother, and then it's left to the audience to determine whether or not, like, okay, was that real? Or
did this game pull a fast one on me?
Did this game pull a gross fast one?
Yeah, this has been a thing people have had stuck in their craw since it came out.
Yeah, and there's the post-credit scene in Monkey Island 2, which is a very early game for a post-credit scene, where Elaine is on Monkey Island just saying, like, hey, where'd Guybrush go? To send the idea that, no, okay, there was a real pirate world, and it looks like Guybrush has been sent to this other theme park world. What this meant, you're right, has been discussed and debated by a large number of people over a long period of time. And we on this podcast have previously said something that I think is now proven incorrect. But we've previously said, no, it's clear that the pirate world stuff is real. It's just LeChuck is playing a trick on Guybrush at the end. He's like hypnotizing him.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not. Yeah. It's not it. It's not correct.
Well, I think in a way it's partially correct. I think the way this game goes about is these adventures that happened are real, but so is that ending. Like, they were in a theme park. I think they do a good way of making everyone happy, unless people didn't like it.
I think they might have made everyone unhappy.
Really? I thought it was great. I
liked it a lot, but for what people were saying all the time, like, since that game came out, is that I hope it's not true that, like, all of the adventure was fake. It's just some kids playing. And it really is just some kids playing, as we found out in this game. This game picks up right from the end of Monkey Island 2 with young Guybrush and young LeChuck. It turns out they are Chucky and Boybrush. Boybrush is Elaine and Guybrush's child.
Yeah.
And the end of Monkey Island 2 is how Boybrush and Chucky always, like, act out the story of Boybrush's dad's adventure, Monkey Island 2.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do it, because it is the kids just playing, but they're playing a story that did actually happen.
Yeah.
Or as far as we know, anyway.
At least in part, like, maybe a lot of it is different.
That's one of my
how it
favorite...
really happened, but, like, some aspect of it was real.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about this whole game. Like, this is, when I was talking about earlier how I kind of needed some time for this game to sink in a little bit, this theme of the game is kind of what really made me like it. Just the concept of stories changing and unreliable narrators. It's like, it's saying, yeah, these things probably did happen, but maybe not everything happened, or maybe not everything happened the way you think they happened.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, they still happened. It's not saying Monkey Island 2 never happened. It's just saying what you saw was them reenacting this.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like it's a way to make everybody happy, is it doesn't invalidate what happened either way.
Well, I could definitely see that as the goal. I think the flimsiness of it and the lack of resolution of like, okay, well, how did that story actually end, though, if we're just seeing a reenactment, will upset people. And as I was coming out of the game, I was definitely thinking like, all right. All right, man.
Yeah, it didn't bother me, but I haven't like looked at any people, like, I don't know what the general consensus is on
it. Yeah, so if you look at the history of the Monkey Island franchise, especially those first two games, the first game, The Secret of Monkey Island, is about finding the secret of Monkey Island, which they don't do. And then in Return to Monkey Island, they try to go back to Monkey Island to find the secret of Monkey Island, which they, again, don't do, really. And then Monkey Island 2 is about finding Big Whoop, which they, again, did not do. So, like, all of the secrets, all of, like, the big lore stuff, it is simply not there. It's not present in the in the whole series.
Yeah, which I can see people not liking, but at the same time, I think what makes it kind of fun is it's not that it's not there, it's that it's a mystery, which is, I guess, isn't that much better. But I don't know, I liked it.
I like it. Don't get me wrong. I'm sort of playing devil's advocate here, but I'm also sort of.
You can see why someone wouldn't like it.
Yeah, I would not call it a mystery. A mystery has a solution that you could find. This is an ambiguity. This is there just
That's
isn't
true.
an answer. And it's not a, if you think about it hard enough, maybe you'll find something you're satisfied with. It's the more you think about it, the less of an answer you'll have, actually. Which is its own fun thing. I don't think that's worthless, and I don't think that's something that is inherently wrong or bad. But it is, I think, like if you were. I looked at Return to Monkey Island during the pre-release hype cycle of that game as this it's this game that's going to come out, and it's what Ron Gilbert always wanted to do with Monkey Island. Even if it takes place at the end, if it takes place after 2, whichever way it works, Ron Gilbert clearly has had this desire to like do something with Monkey Island, especially like from the theme park ending. And do you think, here's the question I'm levying at you, do you think this is actually what he wanted to do the whole time?
No.
Okay. What do you think he wanted to do before? Like, what is it different?
I can't really say what it is he might have wanted to do before. It's really hard to know. But it just strikes me as something that's like, he's not that same person anymore. No one who worked on those old games are the same people anymore. I feel like what he wanted to do with this game would not be the same as what he wanted to do with a Monkey Island 3 at the time. But it is what he wants to do now.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. I think it's better to go with who you are now and what you're feeling now than try to like recapture what you wanted in the past.
Yeah, I still would want to know, like, clearly you had something in mind, though. And
it's more about the curiosity of what was planned rather than like the of what we got.
Yeah, like I don't think I want that mysterious Monkey Island 3A game that would have come out in approximately 1995 or whatever. I just kind of want to know, like, was it really this? was the end of Monkey Island 2 supposed to be Guybrush's kid reenacting Guybrush's adventure the whole time?
Yeah, if it were, like, I'm just guessing, no, maybe it was. But to me, it doesn't really feel like it.
Yeah.
But maybe it was.
It's interesting to go from Tales to this game, because Tales is probably the most literal, most kind of taking itself seriously Monkey Island game, which is saying something because Tales is full of jokes and everything.
Yeah.
But it does seem the most grounded in the world of Monkey Island, whereas this game, much like the earliest Monkey Island games, you'll have like modern vending machines for soda and just all kinds of modern amenities just seep through the game, and then especially at the end, you are again in the theme park.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting to compare Tales to this. Yeah, I don't know, because with Tales, LeChuck was maybe the most dangerous and scary he ever was.
Mm-hmm.
And then in this game, LeChuck is probably the least of an actual threat he ever was.
That is one of my few nitpicks, is I kind of wish LeChuck had a little bit more of a presence. Like, he's there. He's definitely there. And I like when he is there, but he kind of is in the background. He's not necessarily what the story's about.
LeChuck in this game feels a lot like a Bowser appearance in a later Paper Mario game, where Bowser's not the bad guy. There's some other bad guy. Bowser's going to be sort of a bad guy, but then Bowser joins your party or does something good for you or something. And then every single game that does that, they're like, can you believe Bowser's being cool with you for once? Like, yeah, dude, I've seen this like 40 times.
We've done this whole song.
We've done this a lot. Yeah. LeChuck feels a lot like that to me. I have a theory about LeChuck that this game has kind of stuck under my craw that I feel like you won't like.
Go ahead.
I don't think LeChuck ever existed.
You don't think LeChuck is real? I've seen someone else with that same theory too.
Based on, I wouldn't have thought that before this game, but I think this game has made me think. So Boybrush, Guybrush's son, has this friend named Chucky. They're hanging out all the time. They are not actually brothers like in Monkey Island 2. They say they are, but I guess they're just being weird about it.
Yeah, that was the first thing that I thought was kind of weird. It's like that you said you were brothers. I guess them being brothers was just part of the story.
Yeah, it was. The kids were trying to think, okay, what would make this story crazier?
Yeah.
And they said, what if we were brothers the whole time? So his name is Chucky. And he can't be LeChuck's son. That would be crazy.
That would be crazy.
That would be wild.
That'd be funny, though. I would love if it turned out that down the line, Guybrush and LeChuck just hatched things up. They're like, now they're dads. They can't do pirate stuff anymore, but now their sons hang out at the park. LeChuck's an old man.
I think that Guybrush invented the character of LeChuck to give his son's friend and his son tools to act out their fantasies with when they're reenacting these stories. If they're always reenacting these stories, if they love these pirate stories so much, Boybrush says, I'm gonna be Guybrush, and then Chucky says, okay, who can I be? And then Guybrush says, you can be LeChuck. You can be LeChuck. And then how about that? He's a cool pirate guy. He's like a ghost. And so yeah, I kind of think that LeChuck never existed. Another thing that I think is that all of the adventures take place in the 90s and or like 80s or 90s, the 1980s or 90s. So like they're going on adventures to places, but they're not magical actually. And I don't know how I like that, but I do think that's what the game is implying.
Okay.
Yeah, because at the end in the when Guybrush goes through the hell gauntlet, and then he sees all the what you call them, the lights that you need to turn off. You can read a plaque on the wall that says this theme park was created by R. Gilbert in 1989.
Mm-hmm.
I think that implies that, like, he exists in the 1900s, not the 1600s or 1700s or whatever he would have existed in. Which means that probably none of our most favorite things about it ever happened.
The thing I like is, I mean, you're right, I don't like that. But what I really like about this game is you really can see it either way. Like, I feel like this game does a good job of not closing any doors. Because at the end of the story, even Boybrush is like, Dad, that ending sucked. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So you could see it as being like a literal thing, or you could see it as Guybrush, it really is just, he wanted to one-up his like his son says, you're always so bad at endings. So maybe Guybrush just is bad. He's like, you know what? I'll throw this little thing in here. It turns out it was in the 1980s, and it was a big theme park. And his son's like, oh, shut up. I heard this before.
Yeah,
You've
but
done
like,
this one.
If he said the 1980s to his son would think of that as the distant future. But like, he's coming out of an actual theme park.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a theme park in Pirate. We've seen stuff like the theme park in Curse. I don't think it's necessarily out of.
Now I think it's all fake. Now I think none of it is real.
Yeah, but I think that's the cool part is you can also not think it's fake.
Yeah, if you want.
Yeah, that was what my thought. That's why, like, right when I finished it, I was like, It was fine. The ending kind of sucked. But the more I sat with it, the more I thought about it, the more it is just vague enough about anything that it doesn't invalidate what anyone thinks of the series. Like, even the secret. Yeah. Even the secret at the end. Guybrush finds the secret of Monkey Island. And you can choose to look in the treasure chest and see what it is. Or you can choose not to.
So what did you do?
Well, what did I do?
Yeah, what was your first playthrough reaction to that?
I looked in the chest.
Okay.
I said, look, if this is going to be another big fuck you ending, I'm going to look what's in this chest.
Yeah, it is.
And so, did you not look in the chest?
No, I of course did. It's a t-shirt that says, I found the secret of Monkey Island, and all it was this t-shirt.
At first, I really hated this just because it seemed so obvious.
Well, it wasn't. Like, was it obvious? I didn't know what it was going to... You knew it was going to be a t-shirt before you opened it?
You had characters at the beginning of the game saying, oh, it's probably just like a t-shirt or something.
Yeah, that's true. I probably should have... I should have listened to them.
But what I like best about it is... It could just be Guybrush being goofy. He could just be like, oh, yeah, it was a t-shirt. Haha. What a funny joke, right, son? My son, Boybrush. And he's like, Mom, Dad won't tell me what the real secret was. So it's possible it was a t-shirt. It's possible it was something else entirely.
Well,
I like that a lot.
Yeah, so you see the t-shirt ending, and then he asks you, okay, what was it really? And he gives you 5... The game gives you 5 options to tell your kid. What did you say to the kid then?
I told him, I forget the exact wording, but I picked the one where he said, the secret of Monkey Island isn't just one thing.
What does that mean? What did you want that to mean?
I don't know. I just like the idea of him being like, it doesn't matter. It can be whatever you want it to be. It's just it's a part of the story. What the secret of Monkey Island is not an important thing. Don't worry about it. But there are plenty of other choices there, and each one gets you a different post-credit scene.
Yeah, I didn't realize that at first. So I chose to say, and I don't know why I was feeling this, but out of the options, one of them was, no, it literally happened exactly like what I said.
It literally was a t-shirt.
It literally was a theme park opening out of a hellmouth into a t-shirt. That's what it was. I did not exaggerate. I picked that. Then Boybrush says, "What? That doesn't make any sense." And Guybrush says, "Yeah,
you're right.
You're right."
That's why I think it can, like, I wouldn't take the ending to be like literally what it is, because I
don't either.
Yeah, but you could if you wanted to say this was all just a theme park, none of this really happened. You could totally say that, but there's enough there to be like, no, this is just Guybrush trying to make his son laugh.
Yeah, in whatever reality exists in this game universe, what probably happened, I imagine, is that Guybrush was sailing around as a fisherman. Like he's just got some sailing job. He's like a cargo passenger. He got a job. They had a stop by Melee Island, and he's like, oh, I remember some people from there. And then like that was the story. And to an adult, that kind of story can be like, oh, that's a pretty good story. But like a kid that wants some adventure, Guybrush is like, okay, what if there's this concept I'm going to invent called the secret of Monkey Island? And Monkey Island in reality is probably just we got coconuts there. That's what
they got monkeys.
But like, okay, what if there was a secret of Monkey Island? He's got to like dress it up. So he can't know what the secret is. He could never think of a good enough answer for his kid. Like he says, if one of the options is it was riches as far as the eye could see. And I imagine if I were Boybrush, I'd be thinking, okay, so like, do we have that money?
Why aren't we rich?
Why aren't we? Can I have some? It seems weird to keep that from me, your son.
This coat is old.
Yeah, your coat is really old. Why do you not just buy a new coat with your fantastic riches?
I had to root around for a coin to buy a scurvy dog.
Yeah, so this is what Ron Gilbert and Dave Grossman really wanted to do. They worked hard to get the license rights back for a Monkey Island game.
Mm-hmm.
They worked on it for I think like 4 years after Thimbleweed Park finished.
That's a lot of years.
Yeah. And this is what they wanted to do the whole time. This is like, okay, so there's a new part of the story that needs to be told, and then they kind of didn't tell it, which is an interesting.
Wait,
impulse.
No, it was 2 years, because after you beat the game, you have a letter in your scrapbook.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And
it's 2 years.
It is dated 2020.
And they say some very interesting things in that letter too.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about how Secret of Monkey Island was all about them starting to be game developers and heading into a new and exciting career. They're like Guybrush wanting to be a pirate is a manifestation of them wanting to be game developers.
You're right.
And then Monkey Island 2 is about itself being a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
And they said Tales of Monkey Island is a game about trust and trusting a new team to be able to carry on this legacy, which I thought was very interesting, because I did not get that at first.
I didn't either, and it's interesting that is the game that's singled out.
Well, I guess it's because Dave Grossman worked on it and Ron Gilbert was a consultant for it, because Curse and Escape just...
totally different people.
Yeah, completely different team.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I just thought it was interesting since that's the one we covered.
Yeah.
It's like, they're talking about us.
That's us.
I decided to take credit.
We made that game, in a sense.
You're welcome.
Talking about a game and making a game is basically the same thing.
More or less,
More or less, yeah. I recontextualizing Tales of Monkey Island to be about trust, which is to be completely honest, something I never would have come up with on my own, makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure I really get it in terms of like trusting another team to take on the legacy. I don't think that comes up so much, but more like the trust in the relationship between Guybrush and Elaine when Morgan Le Fay comes in. So.
Yeah, and Morgan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really strike me as like this is what Tales was about, but it is an interesting parallel.
Yeah, I guess LeChuck, having to trust LeChuck does feel like, okay, maybe you felt like you could trust the Curse and Escape teams and then you felt disappointed by them or something. I could see that parallel. But then they're just talking about how now they're in their 60s and they are just old people trying to remember and continue a legacy they once had. And that's
right.
what this game is all about. And I feel it.
They bring up the phrase unfinished business a couple times.
Yeah, which that one throws me. Because, like, if you really had unfinished business, I don't know what it was. Like, you had to do this vague ending that contributed nothing to the... I mean, it didn't contribute nothing. That would be... That's very disingenuous. That's an unfair argument. I think it contributed a lot to the feel of how Monkey Island went. It took a lot of the pressure off of the ending of Monkey Island 2 and put it all on itself, which is a very... generous thing to do for the other older games in the series.
Right.
But yeah, like I wonder what that business they thought was there.
Maybe it was just the business of having another go at just literally returning to Monkey Island. Like whether or not it's the same story they had planned.
Yeah.
Maybe their unfinished business was just giving that some sort of resolution.
Yeah, maybe more for just Gilbert and Grossman individually, like we were supposed to make a number 3 and didn't.
Yeah, it less like unfinished business with the story and more unfinished business with they just had to do one more Monkey Island.
I believe it. That feels right to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent you a YouTube video last night of all the endings.
Yeah.
Having had some time to think about it, which of those 5 options that you can tell Boybrush do you believe in the most?
You know, I was actually going to go back and redo my ending because I didn't feel great about the post-credit scene I got. I thought, oh, that's kind of lame.
Which one was which post-credit scene you get?
It's the banana on the rock.
So I read an article about that did not... the article didn't understand, and by extension I didn't, that the post-credit scene could be different every time. Because I didn't understand my post-credit scene, which is like they're at a theme park and they get tickets.
Yeah, he tells you that's literally what happened.
That's literally what happened. So they got tickets, in like 3 tickets, I guess, for Elaine, Guybrush, and Boybrush. And I was thinking, like, okay, what are the tickets for? Because I didn't understand that it was relating back to the ending. I didn't know that you could get different ones.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked up what someone said, and then they said, like, okay, here's what you're all going to be wondering about the spinning banana ending. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about at all. I have no concept of why you're saying what you're saying. And they were just getting into, like, a long, rambly thing of how the banana slowly like leaning back and forth on the rock is an allusion to the end of Inception, where the spinning top like goes back and forth and it makes you wonder whether it really happened or not.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's what it is?
I really should have written it down because I feel like I remember Guybrush like literally has a metaphor about the banana that he says to his son.
A spinning banana, like on a rock.
Yeah, I
don't remember.
I remember him like actually saying it. I'll need to come back to it. I guess.
So maybe you don't agree that it's an allusion to the movie Inception?
I don't know if I agree with that. But I don't know, it felt nice at the time. It felt nice telling him, look, the secret isn't any one thing. It can be whatever you want. The point is, it's a fun story.
Yeah.
So I originally hated that, and I wanted to go back and redo it, but then I thought about it, and I was like, no, I actually think that's great. I don't want to change that at all. But I do also really like the one where he's in the boat with all the characters. He says the secret was the friends we made along the way, and then the post-credit scene is him in a little dinghy, just having a good time with Murray, the chef, a bunch of different characters, and just laughing it up, having a good time.
So, okay, here's a little behind the scenes baseball. Insider baseball for the listener. We were going to record this podcast a week ago.
Yeah.
But then I told Dustin, hey, do you mind if we take another week and you go play Thimbleweed Park? Because I feel like I've got a lot to say about the ending of Return to Monkey Island. I mean, the whole game, really, but especially the ending. That would only make sense if you've played through Thimbleweed Park.
Which I have. I just finished it literally this morning.
And I was so hoping, and I feel bad about this, I was so hoping that once you finish Thimbleweed Park, you'd be like, oh, dude, yeah, we have to talk about this with the context of Return to Monkey Island. But I asked, so do you understand why I wanted you to do that now? And you're like, no, not at all. I feel like I wasted a whole week.
Is it just because they're both stories? Like, they're technically... Like, it's someone making a world.
Well, yeah, so...
Basically.
The two reasons, really.
Okay.
One is that, yeah, the ending of both games is very similar. Where it's revealed after a long amount of time through the game, You're looking for a... like, physical what happened type answer to a mystery. What is the secret of Monkey Island? What happened with all these murders in Thimbleweed Park? And then the answer to that is not an answer to that question. The answer to that is, oh, it was a story Guybrush was telling the kid the whole time. Or in Thimbleweed Park, actually, Thimbleweed Park is a video game.
Right.
So, like, in both cases, this seems to be Ron Gilbert's thing now. Of, like, he'll make you think about something and then tell you it does not matter that you were thinking about it. And just that just seems to be a running trend, especially when compounded with the fact that that's kind of what Monkey Island 2 always was. So now he's gone on record doing this 3 times.
And that's a lot more than I have.
Yeah, and I would feel like if we didn't mention the fact that this is the 3rd time he's done this in our like covering of Return to Monkey Island, we would be presenting an incomplete assessment of the situation.
That's true. I'm glad we finally had the nerve to say the truth.
So what do you think about that? What did you think about the ending of Thimbleweed Park? Specific.
I'll be honest, Mitch. I honestly like it a lot more in Return than I did in Thimbleweed.
Okay. I wonder if you're maybe just always going to like this ending way less the second time you see it. Because I liked it in Thimbleweed more than Return.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like I really liked how Monkey Island handled it because it felt like it didn't... Well, I already said it. You know, it keeps things vague enough, but also things interesting enough that nothing feels invalidated, while also having its own sort of message to it. And that I really enjoyed. And then here it's just, oh yeah, it was just a video game.
Well,
don't worry about it.
I would not say that about Thimbleweed Park's ending. I don't think that's how I read it.
Well, you've also had more time to think about it. This is just me coming off of it just right now.
Yeah, you finished it this morning?
Yeah, literally like a few hours ago, I rolled credits.
Okay. Yeah, the thing with Thimbleweed Park is that Thimbleweed Park and Return to Monkey Island, but especially Thimbleweed Park, feel like very autobiographical reckonings of the time that Ron Gilbert worked at Lucas on those original LucasArts adventure games.
Okay. Explain it to me.
Well, much of the game is an allusion to Maniac Mansion.
Right.
Like Dolores lives in a mansion that is pretty much supposed to be very evocative of Maniac Mansion.
Right, it's mansion.
Yeah. And then Dolores herself gets a job at Mucus Phlegm Games.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my understanding that like a lot of what was going on in the outside reaches of this game are like a lot of what was happening in the real world that might have influenced some of the LucasArts games. Like the two detectives are very Twin Peaksy. Twin Peaks would have come out at around that time too. And the way that the story talks about the town Thimbleweed Park feels a lot like a metaphor for this dried out place that they used to live that they can't anymore because it was changed by furthering technologies. And it to me, Thimbleweed Park, the city, the location, is the time they had at Skywalker Ranch making those LucasArts adventure games.
Ooh,
that's my read on it. So it feels a lot like a reckoning with their development of those games at that time. But it I think in contrast to Return to Monkey Island, it feels like maybe a slightly more negative read on it. Ultimately optimistic, I think, both in Thimbleweed Park and Monkey Island. But Monkey Island is like a fully optimistic, like, yeah, that was cool, wasn't it?
That was a fun little story Guybrush told his son.
And it continues into this day, sort of, in a way, I guess. But Thimbleweed Park is like, oh yeah, it went away, didn't it? It doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
That aspect of my past, my in this case being Ron Gilbert's. So I think that's another very interesting similarity between the two games, where like Thimbleweed Park feels. My take on it when I was playing through. Tell me if you agree with this. It felt angry to me. It felt like a slightly angry story.
The whole game, yeah, it kind of felt. I definitely agree. I hate to say this, Mitch, but I feel like that's one of the reasons I liked this game. I enjoyed Thimbleweed Park, but I maybe didn't enjoy it as much as you did, because I know you loved this game.
I really do.
And
yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah.
I thought it was good. But I had nitpicks here and there, and yeah, I feel like that is one of the reasons why I just wasn't super enjoying. Like you have Ransom the Clown, who's very angry.
Yeah.
And it fits that. I totally. The more we talk about it, the more I see like how purposeful some stuff was. Mm-hmm. But at the time, I was just like, I don't care for this guy.
Well, I think that's Ron Gilbert seeing himself a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, whenever you try to think about like what these sorts of stories mean, you might sometimes intuit more than exists about the creator. So I don't want to say like I have any insight onto how Ron Gilbert the person feels about anything, but it's hard for me to not imagine that like, oh, they're presenting this washed up comedian that used to make people laugh and can't anymore. Because the world around him is changing and he's changing, he's getting older, and the tastes are just changing too much. Like the whole game, Thimbleweed Park, is just a manifesto of like, were those games even that good back in the day? I thought they were, you thought they were, but like, we're not doing them anymore, man. Things used to mean something. And then in Monkey Island, it feels like a lot of even what's happened over the last just couple years that has seemed to really upset them no longer is that big of a deal. And they are able to look at their legacy with kinder eyes, which I appreciate, but I also feel like, okay, but if you were angry about it, don't just like not be angry about it because it's more polite. Like, maybe keep some anger. Maybe keep that fire inside of you.
You can, but I also think it gets to a point where it's like, well, maybe now, some time has passed. Not a lot between the two games, but
enough, like a critical number of years.
Maybe it's just reevaluating one's, like, looking back. I really like that scene at the end of Return to Monkey Island, and this is an optional thing. You're not guaranteed to get this, but when Guybrush is just sitting on the bench, wistfully looking around and just being like, yeah. Before the credits roll, I think that's just wonderful. So maybe it's like that. Maybe it's like, well,
yeah.
Maybe the things we were angry about are not the most important things we should be looking back on. So maybe some of them are, but maybe it's more about the good times. And this is me just pulling this out of my ass right now. I'm not trying to.
No, I think that's true. Like that scene where he's just looking into the sunlight. It's hard to definitively say what that means because it's just so open. But I was definitely reading like, yeah, I did have some fun adventures.
I had some great times. I'm in a great spot with my life right now.
Maybe after previously thinking very recently before this, everything went wrong. It could have been something, and it wasn't.
I didn't get the secret of Monkey Island. I really should have gotten that secret. But you know what? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I don't think Return to Monkey Island can happen without the analysis of Maniac Mansion and its influence in the games, the world of games and the games industry that Thimbleweed Park was. Mm-hmm. I think it's like a part 1 and part 2 of a long introspective story about LucasArts adventure games.
That's very interesting. I like that a lot.
But you didn't like Thimbleweed Park that much, or you liked it a little.
I did like it. I just had some things here and there, and you know what? I'm gonna fully admit, part of the reason I liked Return to Monkey Island more is that it just appeals to me more.
Sure,
I like the pirates and the adventures, and I like the cartoony style of it more. Mm-hmm. So I feel like regardless of whether or not Thimbleweed Park was the better game, there was no way I was going to like it as much as Monkey Island.
Yeah, I like the pirates, I like the cartoony, but I will say that I have a soft spot for that specific kind of pixel art as well.
Right. And so that's another thing. That is one thing that I was talking to Adam about it. He was watching me play like just a couple minutes or so. And I don't know how I feel about how Thimbleweed Park looks. Because it's one of those things where it's obviously incredibly well done. It's gorgeous pixel art. But I also just don't think that style they're doing is necessarily my thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason.
Yeah.
And it's nothing against the game itself.
I did not grow up playing Maniac Mansion or Zack McCracken and the Alien Mindbenders or anything like that uses this specific like bobblehead pixel art style. So it's like nothing I've ever seen before, or I mean I've seen it, but it's like nothing I've ever played before or really had a strong childhood attachment to, but I still kind of really dig it. I don't know, there's something about it that I like. I can totally also see it being not someone's point of view. But in the lead up to Return to Monkey Island, people were talking about the art style to Ron, and I think in one of the few interviews he did about it before, he said like, "I'm just not talking about it anymore," which is a fair reaction.
I think so.
But one of the interviews, he stressed like, Monkey Island has never been pixel art. It has been low pixel density art, but we've always only thought about it as pixel art. The only game I've ever done that is pixel art is Thimbleweed Park.
Right, Thimbleweed Park was more of a purposeful throwback.
Yeah, because like at the time, Monkey Island was not pixel art. It was just, like as high def as they could it be. It's just as it's limitations of the technology. They weren't.
I think they look great. Like
pixel art.
we talked about it before, but I do think looking back on those older games, they do look really good.
They look fantastic. Yeah. I think Thimbleweed Park. It's kind of like Shovel Knight, where it's like, okay, you're doing things with this game that you could never have possibly done with those older games. So it will just look better than any of those, but they were always pushing the boundaries. I think Loom especially is a very beautiful game with incredibly ambitious animations that make things look 3D sometimes in a time where they were definitely not. But I'm just trying to get people to play Loom. People won't do it. I've been telling people who, like, there's people in my life who have taken every game recommendation I've given them. And
Except Loom.
They won't do it. I don't know.
Even Cobb at the Scum Bar is done with Loom.
Yeah, even he seems pretty done with it, even though he still does shout out Brian Moriarty by name, which I appreciate.
Yeah. But Guybrush has to be like, come on, you know you wanna.
I believe I've said this before on this podcast, but Brian Moriarty has done the best GDC talk of all time.
Ooh.
It's called The Secret of Psalm 46, and it was done in like GDC 2003, I think, or 3 or 4. It's a good one. I recommend it.
Nice.
Anyway, you have anything else you want to talk about with Return to Monkey Island or Thimbleweed Park or Terrible Toy Box?
We can just talk about some, in general notes, things we enjoyed here and there. I liked the new pirate leaders. I really liked how the pirate leaders were more involved in the story this time.
Yeah, they were an interesting crew. I like their tone. I like what they bring to the table.
Yeah, because it is kind of interesting how in the first game, once the pirate leader's out of there, never seen again.
Yeah.
And they seem like they're such major parts of this world, and they're just not. So it's interesting. I like that they are this time, as well as bringing back the old ones.
Yeah,
like
in the beginning, in the first game, they're just like some people at a bar who heard that you want to be a pirate, and they're like, I'm gonna mess with this guy. Actually, you can't.
Sorry.
Like, that would be if you're at a bar today, and someone says, I want to be a seamstress, and then you just go, actually, I have to tell you that's okay.
I have to tell you whether or not you were a seamstress.
I don't know why seamstress is what came to mind for me.
You were saying when you were playing that you really liked their take on Elaine in this game.
Yeah, I didn't know how it would come out because Ron Gilbert has famously gone against Elaine being married to Guybrush. He did not like how Curse was about that. And I thought that meant like, okay, whatever they're going to do with Elaine, they're going to like calm down the lovey-dovey relationship bits. And they did not at all.
Definitely not.
But they also did not have her that involved with the Guybrush plot. She's doing this complete other thing. Scurvy is really affecting all the pirates in the world, and what she's doing is just trying to convince people, like, please, if you eat a lime, it'll be fine. And
just do it
in a very I don't know, it's a little politically topical. It's definitely a metaphor for something going on in the world right now.
I wonder what that could be.
Wonder what that could be. A disease that people have the opportunity to just inoculate themselves to, and they just won't do it. Yeah, at one point, you need to get on a ship that's out there, but the people on board are like too paranoid that you could bring them scurvy somehow. And Guybrush is like, just eat a lime, man.
It's all good.
But any attempt to convince them that limes are the cure to scurvy will make them be anti-science about it and just say like, dude, don't try to convince me with science. I'm trying to save myself. Don't bring your
science
here.
in here.
You need to go see Stan, who will then try to manipulation marketing. Like, he'll try to do some way to make limes seem like this thing that you just want in order to fix scurvy.
I gotta have limes.
Yeah. It's a good plot for her, but also just anytime you run into her, even though it's probably been like 1 or 2 days, she's like, Guybrush! I'm so excited to see you! She's always so excited, and she's just like so in love with you the whole time, and Guybrush is so in love with Elaine. It's really heartwarming, just continuously good.
I love it, yeah.
I
at first I was a little upset that she doesn't show up that often, like just here and there, but that really is how it is in the first couple games as well.
Yeah, and at one point when you're talking to the Swordmaster, who is the new governess of the island, because Elaine is now fully focused on this scurvy situation. You're talking to the Swordmaster, and she's like, is Elaine going with you to Monkey Island? And Guybrush says, look, just because we're married doesn't mean we do the same stuff. I've got this secret of Monkey Island thing going on, and Elaine's focused on limes.
She's got this whole other lime thing going on.
She's got a way too involved lime thing. I don't understand the science behind it. But but yeah, she's focused on that thing, which is cool. So like whenever they do come together, it feels like two people are coming home from a long day at work, and then they're just enjoying each other's company, talking to each other about their work, but they don't work at the same place.
Yeah, they show interest. They show interest in one another, in what they've got going on, and help one another. Like, she helps Guybrush at the end. He helps her with her whole lime thing.
her whole lime shenanigans. My favorite aspect of the story is that in point-and-click adventure tradition, as you're going around getting the stuff that you need to do the things you need to do, Guybrush is like accidentally dooming all the people around him.
Yeah, like the mop tree.
The mop tree. There's a tree that you cut off one branch to get a handle for a mop. It's like a perfect mop handle shaped branch coming out of this tree. And Guybrush does not understand this and thinks that he needs to whittle down the entire tree in order to get the handle for the mop. Hilarious.
And not just that tree, but like all the surrounding trees are like chopped down on fire.
Yeah, there's fire.
He really did not do it. He really did not do a good job.
Yeah, and then Guybrush just takes the center of the tree as his mop handle, and he's like, "Yeah, this is how I've always cut down trees."
Yeah, and he has no idea what he did wrong. All the animals around him are crying, sobbing their eyes out, and he's just like, "Oh man, something really upset these guys."
Yeah, well, I'm glad I got that scary tree out of the way.
No need to thank me, everybody.
And there's this other time that Herman, what's Herman's last name? Herman
Toothrot.
Toothrot. He finds him at the bottom of this like dark cave, and Herman Toothrot is like, "Hey, can you get me out of here?" And Guybrush is like, "No, but maybe. I can leave."
Yeah, Guybrush doesn't know that the thing he uses to leave will not bring Herman, but he also doesn't seem to care.
Doesn't care either, yeah. And
I do. Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to move on to another point. So if you had something about this one, feel free.
Well, yeah. Well, there's that, and then the Herman Toothrot, and then also the he completely disassembles a monarchy that's been like beloved by its people and in power for hundreds of years on Bermuda, which is a hugely shit take name for an island. It's a snowy island. It's called Bermuda.
It's interesting. I never would have thought to have like a snowy, cold location in a Monkey Island game.
Yeah, it fits though. It's like it feels like Iceland. It feels like a northern European island, but it's still an island. You know, it's still
yeah. There's not even any pirates here. Like, they specifically tell you no pirates allowed, and it's just this village with a monarchy.
Yeah, and Guybrush ruins the monarchy and kind of like upsets their entire way of life. And then there's like interstitial scenes where Elaine is going to all these places trying to do her own thing, and she's like, "Wait, Guybrush is here and he messed you up this much?" And I was watching those scenes, and I was getting like my heart was sinking. Like, is Elaine gonna divorce Guybrush in this?
I was thinking that too. I was like, oh no, I hope this isn't going where I think it's going.
Yeah, is Elaine gonna see all the shit that he does wrong and like completely just say like, hey, Guybrush, you need to work on yourself. You are ruining the lives of those close to you. On one hand,
that would be interesting, but I feel like we've done that so much on this show.
Yeah.
Like we had Walking Dead, and
yeah.
like obviously this game shouldn't have to tailor itself to us playing these games, obviously. But I still would have been a little like, okay, well, we've seen this. But I'm glad that it just leads up to. Even Elaine's not that bothered by it. When she and Guybrush meet up again, she's just like, well, I sure hope this secret's worth it.
Yeah, well, her attitude is like, I'm going to help you do whatever. You and me forever, buddy. But also, you probably should think about it. You probably should consider what you did.
Yeah, I hope getting this secret is worth doing all these awful things.
Yeah, because in Guybrush's mind, like, it completely is. Everything that I'm doing is an ends that justifies the means. Or however that expression is supposed to go. And in Elaine's eyes, she's like, hey, you know what? I legitimately do believe you. If you think it is worth it, I just am surprised that it is.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things is at the end, in the big Stan's theme park part of the ending, if you talk to Elaine and tell her you got the secret, like if you opened up the chest and got the t-shirt, she'll ask, was it worth it? And Guybrush says, I'm going to have to think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, good Elaine writing, I think. Just the whole of what Elaine does in the story. It makes me think that Guybrush is saying he did all these things and he got a talking to by his wife to maybe like sew in some moral into the story for his kid.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, so in case you're ever in a cave, you should help the other guy get out. Because otherwise your mom's going to yell at you.
You should maybe not cut down a tree.
You should cut down a tree the smallest bit at a time you can. Not the biggest bit.
Yeah, do it better. You know what's a theory I saw someone bring up that I think is kind of nice? Elaine in this game is a lot less angry than she normally is. A lot less feisty. And I think it's on purpose because I really do like this point that someone said where it's Guybrush inserting Elaine, how she is now, into this story that happened before. It's how he knows Elaine now, rather than how she was at the time.
Yeah, or maybe even just, like, in Guybrush's telling of the story, whether or not the other games in the series were also tellings, or maybe we were seeing what was happening directly, hard to say. But, like, if this is the one where we know it's a story, Elaine just seems wonderful because he thinks she's absolutely wonderful.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, at this point in Guybrush's life, he loves Elaine. He and Elaine are older, kind of softer, and he just portrays her in this game as he's crazy. He sees her as perfect. Mm-hmm. He doesn't see her as being angry with him. They love each other.
Yeah.
And that's great. I also like how we find out that Guybrush kind of... The amount of time he can breathe underwater kind of fluctuates depending on the story.
Yeah, in this
like
one,
his son
it's a
says,
firm
sometimes
8 minutes.
Yeah, his boy brush says sometimes it's 8, sometimes it's 10. I heard you say 12 once.
Yeah, apparently, if you stay underwater for more than 8 minutes, you can get a secret ending where no one's on the bench. And it says that Guybrush is survived by his wife Elaine. They had never had any children.
Yeah. I feel like if they did that in one of the earlier games, I wouldn't like it as much. But I think here in this game, it autosaves so often that you can just reload that up anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the LucasArts promise, right? That you can't die in these games.
You can't get locked out.
Unless it's really funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like if you mix your medicine with alcohol and curse.
Yeah. I do think it kind of works in the first game just because by that point, you're not that far into the story anyway, so if you have to restart the whole game, it's fine.
Yeah, and in that game, in that instance, there's like the answer to the puzzle that you're in when you're solving the underwater thing. It's so obvious, and you can do it so many different ways that like no one's actually ever going to spend 10 minutes there. No one's going to spend 1 minute there.
Exactly. Unless they want to see what happens.
Yeah.
I liked... What was your favorite part of this game?
Like the top.
What was your golden moment, let's say?
My golden moment might be that walk with Elaine when they're going toward the end of the game. And Elaine, like we just talked about it, where Elaine's saying like, hey, are you sure about that stuff you just did? And like, you can either be defensive or combative, or you can admit that you're wrong. Like, you can take that one at a time and say like, hey, I didn't know that the secret word wouldn't take Herman with me. And Elaine goes, oh yeah, I hate it when that happens. And it's just like, they just keep going.
Just move on. Well, yeah, she says, look, I saved him. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. I just like how that came out. I thought that was really good.
One other thing I like about that scene is I feel like it's a good way to kind of stay in that tradition of keeping Elaine on top, but in a way where she's more understanding. Like, it's kind of like the ending of the first game where it's like, Guybrush, what the fuck? I had this all under control and you fucked it up. Here, she's still fixing his problem. She's like, don't worry about it. It's all good. But we're in it together.
Yeah, Guybrush is clearly Elaine's himbo. She likes that about him.
Yeah.
But it's like, he's dumb, but she is fine. She's like, yeah, no, I chose it. I chose a dumb one. I won it.
I made my choice for a reason.
Yeah.
My golden moment was the ending. I just felt like it just gave me so much to think about. I liked that realization, how at first I was like, that kind of sucked, and then just the more I thought about it, the more I think it might be my favorite ending in the whole series.
My golden moment was
I thought it was the walk
when Dolores got accepted into Mucus Phlegm Games, and she made a game.
Oh, we're talking about Thimbleweed now.
My golden moment was when Citizen Kane was in the bed and he said the rosebud, but they didn't know what he meant by it.
I like the part where Simba goes up to his dad and he says, "You gotta get up."
My golden moment was when Thanos was about to kill Iron Man, but Iron Man says, "I am Iron Man," and then snaps his fingers and dies.
That was pretty good.
It's pretty good.
If we're doing both Thimbleweed Park as well, I think my golden moment for that was having to watch the Kickstarter video to figure out the last puzzle. I thought that was a fun, creative
That
way
was a really cool way to
I was
go
like,
about doing
whoa, that's crazy. Oh, actually, here's one more thing for you. We didn't really discuss it, but what are the things you didn't like about Return?
I mean, I got into it a little bit where like it's a lot of repeated stuff. And yeah, I could have stood to see, like, I want a little bit more of, like, if we're going back to Melee Island and spending this much time on Melee Island, like, what other things have happened? Because it's a lot of the same. There was the museum I really liked, though.
The museum was cool. I think that is what makes me okay with it, is just seeing how much has changed. Like, having Carla be the new governor, I thought was cool. I liked Wally having his new shop here. They gave the voodoo lady a name. Yeah, I like that it's just... Was it Karina?
It's Karina. Her name's Karina.
Yeah, I love that Guybrush is like, we've had all these adventures, and you've never told me. Can you... Please, I'm dying to know. And she just says Karina, and he says, like, oh, neat.
Yeah, it's a little bit of foreshadowing of, why do you want to know the secret of Monkey Island? Is it going to be that much better?
Who cares? Yeah,
although,
exactly.
Like, after that moment, he does start, like, interjecting the name Karina into his dialogue, as if, like, he's known the whole time.
As if,
come on, Karina! Like, oh, you're calling me that
the Kareenster. One of the endings... one of the endings is a follow-up with Karina, the voodoo lady. Because in the story, she just disappeared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And... LeChuck and what's her name? What's the name of the one pirate leader? Not Lola. Is it
It starts with V?
Lila?
Oh,
I think it
okay.
is. There's Captain Morgan, Lila, and...
It's not Captain Morgan, is it?
No, Madison.
Madison.
Not Morgan.
Madison. Yeah, Captain Morgan.
Captain Madison.
Rum.
Yeah, exactly. So it's Captain Madison, Lila, and Trent. But what was I saying about them?
I don't know.
Why did I bring
the
up
thing
the
about the
pirate
voodoo
ladies?
lady?
Oh, right. Yeah, I was just saying how they come in and they steal the cupboard from her with the secret inside. And then you just never see her again. She's just gone.
Yeah, how do you get that
but
ending?
What? I don't remember how you get it, but if you end up getting the ending that shows her return to her shop, it turns out she was just out getting groceries.
Is that the one where you use Stan's keys to go back into the Hellmouth and then just sort of leave?
It might be one of them, because even that has like a handful of different endings you can get. But yeah, she's just like, she comes back, she's like, what the fuck, what happened here? So I like that it wasn't like a big mystery or anything. She was just out getting groceries.
Yeah. All right.
I also really liked the whole part on LeChuck's ship. I think that might be my next golden, because I just like his crew. I liked
that was
LeChuck.
really good. Yeah.
I thought all of his crewmates had really good personalities. We see the return of Apple Bob from the first game. The ghost with the hat.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting, since when playing the first game, I was like, okay, well, this guy must be like LeChuck's first mate. He's the one who talks. and then he just never shows up again. So it was nice to see him come back.
Yeah, I totally back that up. I think that's the exception to what I was talking about, seeing new characters like all of LeChuck's crew be fleshed out.
Yeah.
It's
There's not a
part
whole
of my
lot of new
flesh
parts,
pun.
but I do think the new things in it are very good.
Yeah.
Like them, I think the pirate leaders are good. You know what I almost put down for my golden moment is the whole story sub-quest you can do with the chums.
Oh yeah, where you try at first to just retell the story of episode 3 of Tales.
Well, you can. A lot of the choices there are different, but you can choose to tell, Lair of the Leviathan. Obviously, that's the one I went with.
Yeah, I wanted to do that, but like they don't like it that much because they're like, "Oh, manatee, that's not very piratey. You should change it to a whale."
Well,
and then you have an option to say whale instead.
Yeah, none of them know what a manatee is. If you tell the story to them, they're like, "What is a manatee? I don't understand. I don't get that reference." So he's like, "Okay." Yeah, the pirate leaders even tell you. They're like, "Look, no one knows what a manatee is. Just say whale. People know what a whale is." Yeah, I thought that was cool. Not only that you can reference Tales like that, but it does kind of play into changing up the story that's being told.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought it was fun. I thought it was fun finding the people who knew and having them give you new advice.
It foreshadows having to change the story so people will like it, which he uses on his son later.
Yeah, exactly.
Clever.
One little tiny thing I like. There's really isn't that many references to curse in here. Like, the most references to curse and escape are in the scrapbook.
Yeah.
Which is a cool thing. I like the scrapbook.
I mean, the lasting implication of curse is just the marriage, right?
Yeah.
And then escape...
I guess that is a big one. Yeah. But one tiny little reference to curse that was in there was Guybrush saying Papa Pichu.
Yeah. Yeah, he still says Papa Pichu.
Yeah, it's just what he says when he gets hurt. He touches the thorn plant on Terror Island. He goes, Papa Pichu. And I was like, oh, he said it.
Yeah, that's good.
I think the only things I didn't care for in this game, to get back to the question I actually asked, and like none of these are I don't think any of these are like major issues I have, just little things. It is a little easy, like even on the hard mode, I don't think there was more than like a couple puzzles I was like really stuck on.
So did you use the hint book?
I used it a couple times.
I used it a couple times too, and I'm wondering if
I
just
rarely
like,
ever needed it.
If I didn't use those, would I think that like even with the addition of 3 puzzles I kind of bypassed using the hint book, would I think that it's much harder? Because 3 puzzles can that can be hours if you just don't understand the puzzle.
Yeah.
And it gave me a lot to think about with accessibility modes, because that is clearly a good thing to have in the game altogether, right? If people are stuck for days and days and days, that's not fun. But alternatively, if someone, I don't want to say someone like me, but like if someone who has a pretty good grasp on how these point and click adventure games work, and, you know, given enough time, I probably could weasel it out. If I just have the book there in the upper left-hand corner of my screen the whole time, I will click it when I don't have to. And I think the argument of like, well, it doesn't affect you if it's there if you don't want to use it. I don't know. I didn't really want to use it, but I was so tempted to use it.
You were tempted. It's so easy to just do.
Yeah.
And you really want to move things along.
Yeah, I wish I could have... I wish the Voodoo Lady's, like, when she was going to give you the book, she just said, hey, do you want this? If you come back, I'll give it to you anytime you ask for it. But
you don't have to
take it, because having it in your inventory, I think, personally, very slightly, not the biggest deal, and I'm very happy it's in the game for those who want it. But for me, I think it did lower the quality of my experience just a little bit, because I would have liked to be stumped for a little bit longer.
Yeah, because I feel like it's very rare in this game to get a puzzle that really stumps you for that long.
I think it's the easiest Monkey Island, by far.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It really just depends on who you ask. But it is something that I did notice it. Like, I did have that thought going through it. I was like, this really isn't that hard.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I would prefer that over being too hard, you know? Like, would it being too easy be a better, more fun experience than just being totally stuck?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm glad Thimbleweed had that hint hotline too. I feel like I got stuck way more in Thimbleweed than I did in Return, like by far.
I think that hotline is a better system than the book. Just to always have the book in your inventory, I think it's a little excessive.
I kind of agree. I don't think it's really hard, because I do think the book is good, like you said, for people who need it. But yeah, it just does make it so tempting. And this isn't even a hard game, even with the hint book. But it would have maybe given it a little more challenge than it ended up having. But this is just like a nitpick. I don't think, oh man, my experience would have been so much better without that hint book. Or if it was harder. But I can see some people also not liking that.
Yeah, I don't think I really want it to have been harder. I just wish I wasn't tempted by that hint book, because I could have done it. I don't know why I was like rushing to get to the answer. It's just when you're having a hard time and then you know that you're just 3 button presses away from figuring it out. If you like go in that direction, it becomes, it's more than just tempting. It's like, well, okay, I'm doing it inefficiently if I don't just read the hint book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really tried to resist the hint book as much as I could. I forget what puzzles it was, but I did look at it a couple times.
That said, the hint book itself is really great. It's very detailed. It's very like context sensitive. You won't get stuck with it if you want to use the hint book to the degree that like you can. It's pretty good stuff.
Yeah. I think that's so good about it is it'll give you like just enough hint that to kind of push you in the right direction without spelling out the whole thing, which is perfect. Because sometimes I did just need that little push.
One other minor gripe is that I think the context sensitive verb system, I think it might even be a little bit less satisfying for me than what Telltale's point and click adventures typically did, where it's just a click. Because what I want to do is use the horse armor on everything. And I want to hear Guybrush explain to me every time, I don't think that ice sculpture needs any horse armor.
Yeah, I get that too. You can't really even like do that in this game.
Yeah, in
like,
this game it gives you like a circle with a line through it. Like, no, you can't. That doesn't go.
Yeah, and that makes it less frustrating, but it does leave less room for experimentation, which is a double-edged sword because on one hand, I told you the friend I was watching play Curse, he was just like trying everything with everything. And on one hand, that's cool. You have that discovery. On the other hand, it can also be very frustrating.
Yeah.
Going through literally everything.
It makes me wish I heard Guybrush say, no. Just a little bit more often than I actually did. I don't think I heard him say it that much in this game. Because anything I could do is, like, valid.
Yeah, I feel like there's a balance to it. I feel like Curse does it too much. I feel like Curse was like, Guybrush is saying no to, like, everything.
Yeah.
But
Tails, though. Tails is pretty good. I think that style... I think maybe the Terrible Toybox people think that's too far of, like, it's just one button to click. But, I mean, that kind of just felt like what Return became after a while. It's just a little bit more complicated than that. I kind of just like the Telltale system more than anything, I think.
Yeah. One thing I did like about it was I like that it wasn't just hover your mouse over a thing and it'll say the name of the thing. I like that everything in the game gives you Guybrush's thoughts on that thing. I think that it maybe doesn't make up for it in gameplay, but I feel like it kind of makes up for it in character at least. So you're still getting Guybrush's saying something about basically everything.
Do you have a favorite new character?
Favorite new... Well, I said Boybrush, but they are all really good. I really like LeChuck's crew.
Yeah, I was going to say his first mate, whose name I forget.
Iron Rose.
Iron Rose is really good.
Do you think she had a thing for LeChuck?
Yes.
Do you think her whole thing was, boy, I'm really into this guy, but I have a feeling it just ain't going to happen?
Well, I think it's less romantic and more like...
Okay.
I was once very inspired by what you're saying, and now you're not very scary, which is kind of a reflection of how this game feels. Like the I think she's the art style critic that shouldn't be talking to Ron.
Don't tell Ron. Iron
Don't
Rose.
tell Ron that LeChuck looks less scary when he's all.
Haven't
cute.
you been listening?
I guess Iron Rose hasn't been listening to my podcast, which is a bummer. I made it for her.
Interesting. LeChuck. It's hard for me to get past his new voice.
And it's not... It doesn't look like him to me.
I think he looks cool. I think... The thing with LeChuck is he changes so much as it is that it doesn't really bother... I think it looks like his design in 2, but more expressive. And I like that. I think making him more expressive is good. But it's just so hard for me to get past that new voice he has, even though I love the guy doing his voice. Huge fan of Jess Harnell. He's one of my favorite voice actors. But Earl Bowen was just like the perfect voice for LeChuck. Like, it just fit him so well. And it's not Jess Harnell's fault. He does a great job, I think, in this. But in the back of my mind, I'm just always like, he's just not perfectly tailored for this character in the same way. And that's fine. You can't have the same guy voice the same character forever. But it does kind of weaken his impact a little. But, like, his writing was on point. I still liked every time LeChuck was there. Speaking of LeChuck, this kind of segues into my potent pickup.
Okay, yeah.
LeChuck's Diary.
That's a good one.
That's my favorite pickup in the whole game. Because not only can you keep it the whole time, it's so full. It's so full of pointless journal entries that are just there for fun. Just there to read. But it also goes a long way of giving a little more dimension to LeChuck's character. In LeChuck's mind, he's just a regular guy. Like, his diary articles are like, all right, well, I'm starting up a diary. I guess let's see where this goes. Iron Liz was giving me the business today. I keelhauled my whole crew. You know how it is. Boy, and I really like how on one page he'll be like, Guybrush thinks I'm his mortal enemy. The truth is, I don't care about Guybrush. Guybrush is nothing to me. And then, like, 2 pages later, here's the top 10 reasons why I hate Guybrush 3. I thought it was a very funny way of giving LeChuck a little more to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a good one. I don't think I have a potent pickup.
That's fine. I kind of got that too. Like, a lot of them are just, 4 puzzles.
I love the horse armor.
Did you find out the one thing you can use the horse armor
Absolutely not. Tell me right now.
Elaine at the very end.
What?
Yeah.
What?
You can show Elaine right at the very end of the game your horse armor.
What does she say?
Okay, Guybrush says, like, I had my horse armor with me the whole time, and I forget Elaine's exact words, but she says something like, Guybrush, the horse festival was next week. And Guybrush is like, oh.
Damn, that sucks. That sucks so good.
Yeah.
All right, great. I love that.
Yeah, but overall, I really enjoyed Return. I still put Tales over it just because I feel like Tales spoiled me on some things. Like, I just think the actors do just a phenomenal job in Tales. And I feel like they do a great job here, but I feel like the story isn't maybe suited for them to go as big as they do in Tales.
Yeah, I think that Adam asked me, because he was impatient about waiting for this episode. Adam asked me, okay, so how do you feel about it? And I told him I really liked it. I do think it's not my favorite Monkey Island game. I think 2 is. And it's not my favorite Terrible Toybox game. I think Thimbleweed Park is. But it's great. I think people should just play it. People should find out how it is. They were saying that they built it designed for any new person to Monkey Island to just be able to get the exact same amount of good time vibe out of it. And you know what? I don't believe them. I simply don't.
Okay.
Do you? I don't. I think you need the context of 2, at least.
Yeah, for that beginning. I think you at least need to play 1 and 2, I would say, are very important.
Yeah.
Like, personally, I think you should play all of them beforehand, but you don't have to. Just 1 and 2, I think you do have to.
Yeah, I guess in following up our discussion on, like, what the unfinished business is, 1, 2, and Return certainly do make a trilogy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And in that way, kind of Curse, Escape, and, well, maybe Escape, and Tales feel like another trilogy of maybe slightly more serious, even though they are very cartoony, Monkey Island games.
I think that is another reason why Tales is still my favorite, is it really is the one time it's a Monkey Island story where you take it really seriously, despite its jokes and such. It just did so much that I really enjoy, and I already went into all of that, but Return doesn't quite have those things, and to me, those are like big, cool things that I really enjoyed. But I feel like what's there in Return, I think back to both it and 2, and as much as I love 2, I feel like I respect... Well, maybe respect isn't the right word, because I do respect what 2 did as well. I got more heart out of this one, and I really liked that. It just made me feel good in a way that 2 didn't necessarily do. Not to 2's detriment, 2's wonderful, but Return just gave me a feeling that I didn't have with any other Monkey Island.
This game has made me so excited for the 3rd Terrible Toybox game, which is a slightly veiled complaint, I would say. Like, that this isn't the one that I was hoping this company would make, which is sort of true, but not really what I mean. It's like, looking at Thimbleweed Park, it was like, oh, we can't do the stuff that we wanted to do anymore, and it makes me feel a certain way. It makes me feel this way, and then they present the game as an expression of their feelings, and it's like really long and deep. It's the longest and deepest point and click adventure in this style that I know of, and I really like that about that. It feels the most ambitious out of any point and click adventure coming from like this group of people. And
yeah, I
then
can agree with that.
Return is like, oh, we actually can do the stuff. I lied before. They're
Sorry.
gonna let us do Monkey Island. I the whole time I just had to ask, I guess. And they're able to do it. And I'm hoping that like their third game is a little less like constrained by those feelings, and that maybe those feelings are what was fueling them the whole time, so it could be a bad thing that they're gone. But like it seems like, okay, you got it out of your system. What do you do now? Can you make a game that is as forward thinking as the aesthetics of Return, but as deep and as large and interesting and like ambitious as Thimbleweed Park, without it needing to be a reflection of your time at Lucasfilm? Because now you have this whole new company that you have a bunch of memories from.
Yeah.
What would that game look like? And also, would it have an ending that isn't bullshit? Would it have an ending that is like an ending to the story that was told?
I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
We'll have to wait and see. I'll back it if they kickstart it. I'll do it. I'm
Yeah,
a huge fan, even though I think a lot of what we've talked about today was critical, or at least on my end, it felt like I was sounding critical. I loved this game. I loved both of these games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved one a little more than the other, but it sounds like you love one more than the other as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I guess that's how opinions on things work.
That's just how we be thinking sometimes. That's just how we be feeling.
It's just how we be feeling.
So, Dustin, I think that's been our very special episode on Return to Monkey Island.
Thank you.
7 out of 10?
The game or the podcast?
No, probably the podcast is way lower. No, I'm joking. It's a really good game. I recommend it to anyone, I would say. Although, yeah, I do think you probably should play 1 and 2 first.
Yeah,
you
and
can still
the thing is,
if you want.
The thing is, 1 and 2 are so easily available, and they're usually pretty cheap.
And the special editions are quite good. The
Yeah,
special edition
so
of 2 is my favorite look a Monkey Island game has had, so, you know.
Yeah, it's so good. I think 2... I do think it might be my favorite way a Monkey Island game has looked as well.
Yeah, my order would be 2 special edition, then Tales... then like parts of 1 special edition.
Right. Yeah, 1... You know what? I will say... I was watching a video of someone playing the special edition of 1 after playing Return. It makes me like the 1 remake a lot less.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not anything against it, but I just think like I much prefer like the wacky environments and the cartoony characters of Return more than not very good Special Edition 1. Even though Special Edition 1, I don't want to slag off the work put into it. Obviously, it had a lot of talent and effort put into it. But, you know,
they got
I don't
the hang
really
of
like
it for
the way
Special Edition 2. They figured
Definitely.
out what they were going for.
Yeah, so, you know, it's... I can't rag on 1 that much. They figured it out. Yeah. You know what's one other last thought I had before we wrap it up?
Last one.
On the subject of the difficulty. I was going to say this when we were talking about the difficulty of the game, but I forgot. I will say, if it were harder than it is now, I probably wouldn't want to immediately jump back into it, which I do. I want to jump back into it and do the writer's cut and see what all I missed. But I feel like if I had a harder time with it, I'd be like, I'll give it some time before I do that. But here I'm like, no, I'm fresh. I'm ready to go, baby.
It would be so funny if it's just 1 line.
They like change. There's a part where a character says whom, but it's supposed to say whomst.
There's an option in the options menu for Thimbleweed Park for changing which way the toilet paper faces in bathrooms.
That's right.
So they would go for it.
I like dumb little things like that.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, well, thank you for sharing your birthday minutes with me. It went a little longer than expected, but I'm really happy that we've been able to talk about what might be the end of Monkey Island. I would not be surprised if this is the last game ever.
Well, that's funny you say that, because Ron says he would be very surprised if it was the last game ever. He said he and Dave did an interview before the game came out, and I guess the interviewer brought up how originally the website said the conclusion to the Monkey Island series, and both Ron and Dave were like, no, we don't know where that came from, and definitely it will not be.
Interesting. Would you want one starring Boy Brush?
I was thinking exactly that. I was thinking it would be, even if it wasn't starring him, the ending of Return sets up that they're going to go on an adventure together. So I feel like you could even just start a new game there, have them going on their adventure with Boy Brush, their first real adventure with their son as a family.
Would it take place in the 2020s?
Who knows? Who cares?
Weird to think about. All right. Well, I'll talk to you next time, Dustin, as we head into our regular schedule again, when we jump into CSI. Deadly Intent, I think it's called.
Oh, my birthday gift is late.
Did I remember the right one? CSI Deadly Intent.
I think it's Deadly Intent.
What's the fourth one?
CSI, a toe gets stepped on.
A bug gets crushed. Yeah, it is. It is Deadly Intent. The next one after that would be Fatal Conspiracy. But we're doing Deadly Intent about 2 weeks from now.
I can't wait.
I can try. I can try waiting.
But I'm not going to be happy about it.
Jumping into a CSI game is like jumping into a pool full of garbage. You can swim.
but you don't really want to.
Well, swimming's fun, regardless of how it smells. Okay, I'll talk to you next week.
So long.
Bye.